is the conclusion of Masechtas sotah. What do I mean the conclusion of Masechtas sotah? After this Pedic, which is a blot, it doesn't talk about sotah anymore already. It goes into a lot of other things, of interesting things, but not about sotah. So this mission over here we're going to learn now, really, by when you make a siyum, so you try to connect the end with the beginning. So in this Mishnah over here, really, it's connected to the first Mishnah. In the first Mishnah, we learned the Masechtas. If you go back over there was a Masechtas about when we talk about Kinu and Stira. So there was a Masechtas over there that Rabbi Bogomilsky says that it could be the Kinu, that means the original warning could be, it must be al pi shnayim, umashka al pi echad. If there's only one edus that there was stira, it could be mashka. Rabbi Yeshua disagrees. Rabbi Yeshua says, mekanu al pi shnayim, umashka al pi shnayim. You can't, we're not makel by the stira. Now, bearing that peace of mind, comes this mission over here. It's a continuation where each one goes with shitasai over there. That's the connection. That's like it's a summation. So usually when there was kinu and there was stira, and there was either 1-8 or 2-8 according to either one, so after that starts the whole process of being mashka. That's what we learned about till now. In the middle, yesterday and the day before, we went through a sugya about kachim and truma and tara and tumma. I mean, a little difficult. Now it's going to go smoother, Mitzvah Hashem. So the Mishnah says as a Misha Kinu Ishay. If somebody warned his wife, and let's say he warned her al pi Adam with 2 Adams, because everybody agrees that Kinu has to be with 2 Adam. Then Vinistra, and she went into seclusion. So the Mishnah says, Afilu Shama Me'ayfa Pereich, even if he heard from a bird. What does it mean? It doesn't mean, it's not that a bird speaks. I mean, maybe there's a whole story with a fish that was speaking, but usually that's a question of that. The question of that is true. But Eifa Prech means really that he heard from an Eid Echad, or he heard from someone that's not kosher Eidus. That normally we wouldn't rely on this person, but he heard from either an Eid Echad or he heard from someone that's not kosher Eidus. So according to so state over here, Yaitse be eating silba. Divid Rabbi Bogomilsky. So Rabbi Bogomilsky says an interesting chiddush. Rabbi Bogomilsky says what happens. The husband heard from an Eid Echad. Now you're going to start cladding. Is it good? Is it not good? He says, I don't want to have such a wife. So he can't do anything. So he says that according to you, Rabbi Bogomilsky, that you hold that kinu al pi shnayim and stira is a pi echad. So you're justified to get divorced if you want to get divorced. You don't want to put your wife through the whole thing over here, but you have to pay the ksuba. If you go through the whole thing later, and then later she's found to be tummy, she doesn't get a ksuba. But in this case, if you don't want to go through the whole process, you have justification to divorce her, and she gets a ksuba. However, Rabbi Yeshua says, no, there was only an Eid Echad. Why divorce your wife? However, he says, Ashiyisu v'yitnalo ba muzores b'levana. I explained, we had this expression back before, I think on that Vova or someplace, that means there's the women that they sit and they spin. So usually, when they spin, they're making the thread. So they sit with a machine and they keep making the thread. There sits a whole group of women together, and they sit many times later in the evening. In the olden days, they didn't have electricity. So they sit in the evening and they do it by moonlight. But what do? There are a bunch of women, we call a bunch of yentas get together over there, and they begin to talk about this person, that person. They begin to discuss this lady, saying a lot of things, nasty things about her. So he says, if it reached that point, if it was talking only on Eid Echad, but it reached that point of that the women, everyone's talking about her, then if you want, you can get divorced, but you have to give a ksuba. Another thing is, because once it reached that point, really, the Gemara said before that the mayim wouldn't be baidik already. The mayim is only baidik when we don't know. But if everyone knows about it, the mayim says, I don't have to do my job. Rely on what the talk in the street is. So this is the connection or the siyum to the first Mishnah in Masechtas sotah. Now we'll go further. Amar eid echad anira yisir shenitmas. We did learn in the Gemara before that Gabi Tuma ve'eid ein bo. So we learned that ve'eid means one eid. That there's one eid. So Amar eid echad anira yisir. What happens if one eid said, I saw that she became tamei? Lo haisa shaisa. So he doesn't have to drink anymore. We learned that in the Gemara because it's declared by an eid echad's belief. V'lo yoid el afilu eved or afilu shivcha. Even an eved or shivcha who are normally not kosher eidus, for this eidus they believe. Harei u'nemonim afu paislam u'ksubasa. That not only could he divorce her, but she doesn't get a ksuba. Now the Mishnah says as follows: Chamoisa, her mother-in-law, ubas chamoisa, that's a sister-in-law. But Tzarasa, if he had a second wife, in those days they used to marry more than one wife. V'yavimto, in other words, the brother's wife, that if he would die, she would become a co-wife with her. Ubas baila. Bas baila means a stepdaughter. Now, these women normally don't like this lady. That's a nature.
Rivalry.
Is even though harei ilu nemanas, they are believed of a velega paislam ksubasa. The ksuba that can't. The ksuba is a din of mominus already, so we don't touch the ksuba. Ella shalai tishta, only that she shouldn't drink. And the Mishnah goes on to explain what we learned in the Gemara before. Shahaya bedin l'chayra, there was a kal v'chayma. Uma imeidus ishayna she'ena so'isa Yisraelim eina miskayemes b'pachas v'shnayim. The first eidus of kinu or stira, according to Rabbi Bogomilsky. So stira has to have shnayim of eidus achrayna, which is that she had relation. Eidus achrayna she'esrasa Yisraelim eina din sh'adeskayim b'pachas v'shnayim. It should surely need to have two. Talmud Doimer steht in Posuk, ve'eid ein bo, kol eidish sheyesh bo. Kal v'chayim eidish she'shayna me'ato. If that's the case, you should now make a different kal v'chayim. That if at the end, which is the most serious part, one eid is believed, so you should make a kal v'chayim, umar im eid is achrayna, she'esras Yisraelim. If that eidus is going to get eidechon, eidus or shoyne shein esos Yisraelim ein a dish that is kaim beidechon. Is a father gewiss is only an eidechon. So we say Talmud Chayva, but the pasuk says ki motzabo evers dover. There's another pasuk that says api shnayim eidim yokum dover. So we say dover gzei shover. Okay. Now the Mishnah says another din. Eid Aime Nitmas. Comes along one Eid and said that I know that she became Tomei. Ve'eid Aime Nitmas. And another Eid denies him, that says no, it's not true. Then that one against one. Or Isha Emeres Nitmas, Ve'isha Emeres Nitmas. Again, one against one, and we saw that everybody's believed by the Eidus Achrayna. Is damos hoysha shaisa? Why? Because when there's two Eidus, one against one, so they cancel out, and we go back to before the Eidus came. Maybe she has to drink. If one said that she became Tomei, and two said that she didn't become Tomei, so the two can cancel out the Echad, and B'meila, Hoysa Shaisa. the opposite. Shnayim Reimin Mas. Two says she became Tomei. Ve'eid echad Oimeloinit Mas. Now, an Eid echad can't knock out two Eides. So then, Loi, Hoysa Shoysa, so she didn't drink, or we rely on the two Eides.
Why did she have to drink altogether? Two Eides that she didn't, she wasn't at Mas.
What?
If there were two Eides that loined at Mas.
The Gemara is going to explain it. That's a whole part of the Gemara over here. That the Eid is either Nemek Kishnayim or we go Basarayim. I mean, that's on the bottom of the page. That will be explained.
I think Eva Pereach means a drone.
Frek the Gemara. Hi Talmud Oime Kimotzo Bo Evers Dova. Talmud Oime, why are you saying that we know it from Kimotzo Bo Evers Dova? With that Dova, it has to be two. We know Talmud Shteto Bo V'Loi B'Kinu and Bo V'Loi B'Stira. Mi boile, he should have said. Why is he saying we're going to Gemara the Beis and Beis and the Beis and Aleph? Kimotzu be'evers dova. That one is the Eid ain't boy. That one is enough. And for the Gemara, Hachinami Kama. This is what the Mishnah means. Talmud Lema. Bo. We're putting in a line into the Mishnah. Talmud Lema Bo v'Loi B'Kinu and Bo v'Loi B'Stira. Now. V'tumba ba'alma b'loi kinu b'loi stira d'loi mehem eidach mino. What's the din if there was no kinu stira? If a person comes and says your wife had a relationship with someone, we don't believe him because he's an eidach. How do you know that? How do you know you need two? So Nama, the answer, because Nama it says kan dover motzu ba'evers dover v'nama lahalan dover al pi shnayim edim yakan dover. Ma'ila halan b'shnei edim, avkan b'shnei edim. Okay. Now we go to the other part of the Mishnah, where the Mishnah said, where edaim in it mas, and edaim lein it mas. Zot the Gemara, Tamo. So the whole reason is why we don't accept this is because the makashrei, because it's the nay that says opposite to him. But if he wasn't makrish, one would be believed. In fact, how do we know one is believed? It's all what we learned before, right? The Torah Rabbanon, ve'eid einbo b'shnayim akasu medaber. When it says ve'eid ein, it means that there's no two eides, but there is one. Now, ato ein b'shnayim, you're saying ve'eid means there's no two. Maybe it means that there's no one even. One will be Talmud Reimer. So from it says Eid Echad. So we know that every place where it says Eid means Echad. Talmud Mimashvish Eid Eini Yedei Yeshu Echad. Why does it have to say Eid Echad? It's a redundancy. This is a binyan av. That means two. And the said, and that means she wasn't forced, is a sotah. So we know that an Eid Echad is believed. Frek the Gemara, the Kivan, the Midaraisa, Eid Echad Meheman. Bibaldo was saying that in this case, by sotah, one Eid is believed. Either Chechem Makashe. How could another one be Makashem? Why not? V'ha'omer said that Kol Mokum Shemina Torah Eid Echad Harei Kashnayim. That it's not the pshat that an Eid Echad is believed. The Eid Echad is the same din as two Eides. And b'meila, and we have a kal b'ein dvorav shel Echad b'mokum Shnayim. The other one is only an Eid Echad. The first one that came is an Eid Echad Taka. but he's like 2. Now comes another aid. That other aid is not like Shnayim.
Why?
Because we're Hemina Torah. We already believe the first one. Once we believe the first one, so we establish that he's 2. So then you have 2 against 1. Ella Amma Ula comes along Ula, and he says, Tini, you're right. Tini, learn Loi Hoysa Shaisa. That we don't accept the other one that came against this one because it's a case of 1 against 2, and that doesn't work. Amr Rabbi Yitzchak. V'chein Amr Rabbi Yitzchak. Also Rabbi Yitzchak said, Loi Hoysa Shaisa. He agrees that the proper lashon should be Loi Hoysa Shaisa. V'Rab Chia Amar, and Rab Chia said, Hoysa Shaisa. No, I'm not going to change what it says in the Mishnah. The din is that she Hoysa Shaisa. V'zei frak the Gemara, Rab Chia kasha the Ula. V'zei according to Rab Chia, what's he going to answer? The Ula's din. Ula said that Kol Malka Shamina Torah Eidach Areik Shnayim. So what is he going to? How could he say it different than that? And for the Gemara, like kasha is not a kasha. Kan b'vasachas and kan b'ze'achazer. It depends. When is Eidach Anem Kishnayim? When he came alone and he said his Eidus and he was accepted. Once he's accepted, he gets the din of Shnayim. But what happens if the 2 came together and one is screaming Nitmas and one is screaming Nitmas? No, the first one doesn't get a din of Shnayim because he wasn't accepted yet. So if he was already accepted and the other one comes to say different than him, 1 against 2 can't work. But if he wasn't accepted, then he's only 1 and the other one's 1. So it cancels out. Now the Gemara asks the question. So now we're going Eid I'm Nitmas. Ushnayim I'm going Nitmas is the din Hoysa Shaisa. That she does drink. Now, why does she drink? Because the 2 said going Nitmas, right? So the 2 were against 1. In fact, the Gemara, if you are medayik over here, Hochad v'chad. What would be if it wasn't a case of 1 and 2 against 1, but it was a case of 1 against 1, what we discussed before? So chayda from the Mishnah's mashma that then she wouldn't drink. So tiyufta the Rab Chia, this is a kasha Rab Chia because Rab Chia said that by 1 and 1 is shaisa. That the Gemara. Rab Chia is going to answer you. You want to bring a kasha on me from the Mishnah. You know, according to you, that you want to say that when 1 against 1, you want to say that look at the seif in the Mishnah. Shnayim marimim nitmas, ve'echad aim loy nitmas. What's the reverse? If 2 said nitmas and 1 said loy nitmas, so the din is loy hoysa shaisa. So why is that? That's because there was Shnayim that said nitmas. Ho chad v'chad. What would be if it would be only 1 and 1 against 1? Hoysa shaisa. So I would say, so it's a proof to me. So it's similar that you can't. Something's different in the Mishnah that you can't bring a proof from the Mishnah. The Mishnah seems to be contradicting itself. So the Gemara, Ella Kula Besua Eidus Virab Nechemye. The Mishnah is talking not that they were kosher Eidus. If they were kosher Eidus, and there will be a difference if they came biyachad or they came zeh chazeh. But we're talking over here by psule Eidus. In other words, it was an Eved or a Goy or an Isha that came to say Eidus. Now, Reb Nechemya says a big chiddush. Reb Nechemya doesn't agree with the rule of Kol Mok Mishamina Torah Eid Echad Harei Ken Shnayim. Now, when I say he doesn't agree, we're soon going to see later in the Gemara that he does partially agree. But right now we're going with the idea that he doesn't agree. So what did the Reb Nechemya say? The Sanya we're going to Rabbi Bogomilsky says, Kol Mok Mishamina Torah Eid Echad Holach Acharayv Deyas. Normally, we go according to the number of the Eidos. If there's one aid or two aid, that's normally how we go. He said that's all when you're talking about regular cases. But in the case where the Torah believed one aid, so the one aid doesn't come shnayim. You go b'sarayv deyas. What does the majority say? We follow the majority. So therefore, but also shnei anoshim b'yeshechad. If there comes one man who's not kosher eidus, and he says one way, and two women come and say different, so that's considered kishnei anoshim b'yeshechad. Just like there were two men against one man, even though there were two kosher men against one man. That's so. Ibal is by psula eidus. So that explains the Mishnah that if two eidus say nitmas, so then the din is lo hoysa shaisa. If two eidus say lo nitmas, is then the din is hoysa shaisa. So the Mishnah is explained according to Rabbi Nechemia, and that's going with the assumption that Rabbi Nechemia disagrees with Ula. That Ula holds that there's a din of komok that there's a din all over komok m'shamina ta'edei shnayim, and the Ula holds no, that where the Torah believed an eid echad, then we go on Rav days. Now the Gemara v'ika d'amri, there's another version in Rabbi Nechemia. V'ika d'amri, some say kol echad asa eid echad kosher meikara afilu mei noshim nami ke'eid echad damyan. In other words, that he agrees partially with Ula. That what? That not the kol mok nishim, but it depends who was the first eidus. If the first eid was a kosher eidus, then that first eid becomes two, and b'meila 100 women are like one eid against him because they're psulim. But he says, in our Mishnah, b'mayaskinen, what are we talking? That the first eid who came in the beginning was the Isha, was a Pasul eidus. And the first eid was a Pasul eidus, so therefore, and the others were also Pasul eidus. So we go, Basur Rav Deyas. V'tirtza with Rabbi Nechemia hachi. And according to, how do you fit this in according to Rabbi Nechemia, that said that is Nemek Ishnaim? He says as follows: Kol Mok Shemina Torah Eid Echad, and he wasn't a kosher eidus, is Holach Acharayv Deyas. He go basur the majority opinion of also Shnei Noshim Be'isha Achas Ki Shnei Anoshim Be'isha Echad. So in such a case, we go according to majority. The two women are like two men against one man, when the psulim. Avol shtei noshim b'ish echad, who was kosher. In other words, it's two women come against one man who was a kosher eidus. So kipalga upalga domi. So they are like half and half. In other words, they're like one against one, and bibal they're like one against one. And the first eid is being kosher is neman kishnayim. So therefore, you trust that eidus. Okay. Now, in fact, the Gemara Akasha. We learned in the Mishnah, we learned two dinim. One din we learned in the Mishnah was if two eidus say tamei and one eidus says loy tamei, or if one eidus says loy tamei and two eidus say, the question is, they're both saying the same thing. Basically, they're saying if according to the way we say now that we're talking about psui eidim. So what's the Mishnah telling? That you go bust a majority. So why do you have to repeat it? According to Ula, it's not a kasha. I don't want to go into that right now. But according to Nechemia, that we're talking here about Psuli Eidim, according to Ula, the chiddush is that the Eid Echad is considered like two. That's the chiddush if he came first, if he came zeh chazeh. But according to Rabbi Nechemia, that was saying that you go according to majority. So for Sheitzer, if two people say one way and one person says another way, you go bust a majority. So why does the Mishnah have to repeat two dinim? It's the same thing. That's Frek the Gemara now. Frek the Gemara, v'talti b'psu edus lamalin. Why do we need two examples in the case of psu edus? They told me majority. If you had one, it's the same story. So the Gemara, Mal, the same, I would think, ki azlina bosa eda bosa rev deyes l'chumra, to be machmar on her, to make her a sotah, abba l'kula, but that she shouldn't be a sotah. I would say then maybe you don't go bosa rev deyes. Then we could say the fill with the miyat of deyes. So Lina, we don't follow then the majority. Kamash Malon, that even l'kula we follow the majority. Save your kasha. We'll start another Mishnah.